Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Fox and today I wanted to bring you my own personal rifle build for TU12 and beyond. I made a lot of changes to the more traditional classic M1A build that you see out there, and I really feel that this new version can hit just as hard as the DPS of the weapon that I'm using is a lot higher than the classic, unbeknownst to many. I feel that this build can safely spam shots. You don't need to go for headshots with this. It's just a safe, reliable, easy to spam, comfortable build in which you can sit at the back of a room, let your teammates run out in front of you, or if you're playing solo, just sit back in cover and just murder everything in front of you. What I'll do in the usual fashion of my videos, particularly for those the newcomers to the channel, and this will all be timestamped below as well, of course, as we're going to go through the build, each individual piece, so I can explain why I've chosen the pieces that I have. As you may have already spotted some unusual choices on here. I'm then going to do a quick how it works section where I'll go into the firing range and demonstrate exactly the power of this build and the best way to play it, at which point I will load solo into a heroic mission or summit so that I can demonstrate some gameplay. That part will be unedited so you can see where the build is strong, where it is weak. And you know, with my aim, which being on console and just being terrible aim in general, I still want to show that this build can work very well. And unlike the M1A Classic, where you really need to be hitting your headshots, particularly with a Providence-based build, I don't even bother going for headshots on this build because you don't need to. It's just safe and reliable to use. You'll also notice in the description below, alongside those timestamps, the link to our Discord server. So if you are interested in getting in on that, there are LFG sections for each individual platforms, event planners so you can easily set up raids using the bot provided, instant notification from Massive for their maintenance and patch notes. You don't need to go looking for those, you'll see it all come through. Build discussions, there's tons of useful stuff in there, so get in that description and get in that Discord server as soon as you can. So before we get into the build, just a little bit of an intro on why I've come up with this. The original classic M1A build, for those of you that remember from TU8, and it was actually pretty good before then, year one, was the Foxes and Contractors, because you would always use those in any DPS build. 3 pieces of Providence, usually your holster, chest and back, as you could have the named version, which is the Perfect Vigilance and the Perfect Glass Cannon, the Sacrifice and the Gift, and then your mask would be your Coyotes. And that was kind of the atypical 6 red murder everything build. But Glass Cannon is, in my opinion, a dying talent. I wouldn't say it's dead because it still has its uses in the game, but since the buff to Obliterate, since the nerf to a lot of the damage that NPCs do, and since the accidental massive reverting the grenade the NPC grenade accuracy nerf. So for those of you that don't know, back in TU10, maybe even TU9, Massive made it so that all NPCs in the game were a lot less accurate with their grenades. It was different per faction and it was based on range, but they have accidentally reverted that nerf, and now every grenade, regardless of range and difficulty of content, will always hit you, and Glass Cannon just doesn't survive it. It simply doesn't work, and until Massive fixed that accidental revert of what I thought was a really good quality of life change to heroic and legendary content, I do think that Obliterate and Unbreakable are better. So for the most part, when you see people using M1A classic M1A builds, and there aren't many of you out there anymore, you will often just see them with Perfect Vigilance and Unbreakable. So we've lost the damage talent on the chest because people have switched to Unbreakable, so what I wanted to do was to try and find ways to build that damage back up again, and I ultimately settled on the M1A CQB. For those of you that don't know, the DPS of this weapon is drastically higher than the M1A, and the M1A has always been viewed as the best weapon in the game because it's sustained damage is one of the highest in the game, but the burst damage, so that's there's a difference between total mag damage and DPS. The DPS of the M1A CQB is 30-35% higher than the M1A, which is insane. You can burst things down so quickly without even needing to go for headshots. But the way that this is balanced out is with its ridiculous rate of fire increase. You can see it's 320 RPM versus the 180 of the M1A. Even the bullet damage isn't that much lower. Is that the handling of this weapon is atrocious, and of course because it only has the 15 bullets in the mag, same as the classic M1A, you're reloading almost twice as often, which cuts into your DPS gains. What I've done is put together a build that negates those weaknesses whilst retaining the strengths of the weapon, makes it very easy to use, and I really do think that this is the best way to run a rifle build for raids, for legendary and for heroic in TU12 and beyond. So let's get started. We'll have a look at the build first of all. We are running the specialization, the sharpshooter specialization, and there are a few reasons for that, which I'll quickly demonstrate now. This has always been the go-to for rifle builds for numerous reasons, and you know, all of these reasons still work very well with the build that we've gone for. Because this is a 6 red build and we are very squishy, the armor kits do remove all status effects and make us resistant to bleed, poison and burn for 20 seconds, which is very powerful. The 15% weapon stability, reduced recoil and faster reacquisition of targets, so that's when you snapshot, you ADS onto somebody that locks onto the centre of mass, are all improved on this build, which is perfect for the CQB as it does need that help. We gain 15% headshot damage, which is great, as with this build you absolutely can hit your headshots, and if you're a better aim than me, you can literally hit nothing but headshots with how stable this weapon will be. Very wide area of effect flashbang grenade, which is great for crowd control. Whilst we don't use a tactician drone here, we do use the mods on it to buff our fixer drones, so that's really nice as well. We give everybody in our team 10% additional headshot damage when we're sat behind them, so basically when the enemy is closer to them than it is to us, which is always going to be the case with this build, so great for group play. Extra cover, this is pretty pointless, I don't really see the point of that at all, but this is a nice one. Because of the near double rate of fire versus the M1A, after 20 seconds we actually start generating 5 rifle ammo every 10 seconds, and because this is an in-cover build, you don't even need to worry about running out of ammo, so that's already one of the downsides of the CQB basically nullified, which is its ammo consumption. So yeah, lots of reasons to use sharpshooter. I can't think of anything else you would use over the top of this. The weapon itself you are using is of course the M1A CQB. You can see that its per bullet damage is insane for its RPM. I've got my roll to damage to targets out of cover, which is the best PvP attribute. In PvE it is joined for top place with damage to armor and damage to health. All of them are very effective. If I had a damage to armor version here, I would be very happy with that. And the reason for that is that a lot of enemies do tend to sit in cover in PvE, so damage to targets out of cover isn't the be all end all. Yeah, I would definitely be happy with damage to armor and damage to health as a replacement here. Potentially they would actually be better. Secondary weapon, I don't use this at all. It is entirely your decision. The only reason I've got the capacitor on here is I was recently made aware by my Discord admin Lugton and his clanmates in Foxtrot Oscars with the acronym FOX. They made me aware that if you are overcharged from BTSU, so you've got a heal on your team, it actually gives you the equivalent of skill tier 6 on your build. I just assumed it was a separate status to your skills that gave them the overcharge, but it actually gives them skill tier 6, which means your capacitor will gain all of the benefits of being on a skill tier 6 build and all of the benefits of being on a 6 red build, which means it will hit harder than it ever has before. So if you ever do get overcharged and you're on a 6 red build, make sure you've got capacitor as your secondary, and whilst that 15-second overcharge window is up, this weapon will decimate. But ultimately I don't use this, it's not my... I only ever use a CQB, but what I do use semi-frequently is the orbit. So what I recommend on this build is that you get any pistol with finisher. The perfect finisher orbit is better because it's a magnum, so its per bullet damage is very high and you don't want to be firing loads of bullets. You just want to fire the one bullet when somebody is low. This is a great way to flesh out the additional damage loss from not having glass cannon or obliterate. 35% crit chance, 40% crit damage just for getting a kill with this weapon and then swapping off of it within 10 seconds, and that lasts for 15 seconds, so it's really quite powerful. So a fantastic weapon to use here, and with all the additional handling on this build, which I'll come to in a second, swapping on and off of this and how accurate it is pretty insane on this build, so it's very useful. Let's look at the gear pieces. We do actually have 4 total named items on this build, which may mean that it's a little bit difficult to farm for the newer players. You don't need as many as this, but of all the different testing I've done, Providence, Walker Harris, Seska Grupo, Coyotes, I even actually used the Dodge City holster at one point just to close the kills with the orbit, and that worked pretty well. But this is, I think, the best version. This just gives me the most damage, the most survivability, and the most usability, so I suppose reliability with my weapon. So what we've gone for here is the Hollow Man, which is a DZ exclusive that can come from your season caches, as well as from DZ and PvP conflict caches as well from completing games there. This gives us the 10% health damage attribute or minor attribute, which is multiplicative and the only source of damage to health on this build. Very important in my opinion, because you want to be melting warhounds and heavies faster, and they are classed as health targets. This is why it's good to have an AR as your secondary, so if you don't have the Hollow Man, it really isn't the end of the world. A great alternative would be a strained AKM, as the sustain damage on this weapon is one of the highest in the game, and because it is so ridiculously accurate and precise with the amount of handling on this build, this is fantastic with the 21% damage to health. So by all means use an AR if you want to take advantage of that health damage, but if you have the Hollow Man, then you don't need to. The chest piece that we are running is the named Petrov chest, which gives us the perfect brace talent. Now I've rolled this is pretty poorly rolled, I need to optimise it, but you want weapon damage, crit chance and crit damage on all of the pieces where possible. You may have already noticed that I have two pieces of Petrov here, and that's because of all the different percentages of weapon handling. I found that even towards the end of the mag, the bloom was so great on this gun that anything less than what I've got on here, it was still noticeable. But with the additional Petrov giving us the 10% weapon handling and the 50% weapon handling from perfect braced, I feel like I'm not really losing out on any damage, because ultimately I've already got the Foxes, Contractors, Seska, Grupo and the Hollow Man. So the final item could be, Walker Harris, maybe a Coyotes if you swap some stuff around, but then we'd lose out on the Jarl, Hollow Man anyway. So actually what you put here is kind of irrelevant, and I felt that this was the best piece. The way that you get this, if you don't know, is you need to complete the field directives, the field research on the gunner tree. So on console or on Xbox, you press Y or triangle for PlayStation over gunner, and you can now see these missions here. You get the vest blueprint from only completing the second one. It's super easy to do. You can do this on normal or higher, so you don't even need to be on heroic. And if you go further down, you even get the Sleipnir, which is actually a great secondary for this build, as we already have Petrov on here as well with the perfect frenzy talent. These two pieces were made to be with each other. So just get in here, get the first one completed, get the second one completed. You'll then be able to craft this chest as much as you want to on gunner. So, perfect brace. What this essentially does is gives us, whilst we're in cover, this is 50% weapon handling, which is an improvement from the 45 from the standard version. Now this is awesome because 50% weapon handling is now calculated at a 1-for-1 ratio for 4 stats. Swap speed, fantastic for our orbit. Stability and accuracy, fantastic for our CQB. And reload speed, also good for our CQB. So just like that, we've removed all of the main weaknesses of the CQB. We're retaining that 30 to 35% additional DPS. We've basically nullified the stability and accuracy problems, and the DPS loss we get from more frequent reloads once again has been nearly nullified by the fact that our reloads are now going to be exceptionally fast with this build. And I just feel that it really enhances, or should I say removes those weaknesses whilst retaining the strengths of the CQB. So try and get this chest crafted if you can. We're running a Grupo holster because you definitely want your crit chance and crit damage to be very high with this weapon, as intrinsically CQBs and rifles come with 17% crit damage, so we want to enhance that further. This is once again rolled to weapon damage, crit chance and crit dam. And alongside the Grupo, we have of course gone for Seska as well to make sure we are hitting the cap. Again, some optimization is required on this, but the Seska gives us a 10% crit chance, once again rolled to the same attributes and core attribute with Composure as our talent. As you almost always want to be in cover with this build, Composure is better than Vigilance. The old M1A builds would use Perfect Vigilance, as that is a 25% multiplicative total weapon damage buff, which is very good. But because M1As, regardless of the type, pull in so much aggro due to their severe amount of damage that they output, you're just getting hit all the time. And in my opinion, 15% multiplicative 100% of the time is considerably better than 25% multiplicative some of the time. And you know, I've confirmed this time and time again throughout missions. You will just end up on more damage if you run a cover build to go with Composure over Vigilance, as you just don't lose the buff. So it just equates to more over the course of an entire mission. We're then of course running the Contractors. This is the first piece of Petrov. We don't need it for the 10% LMG damage, but the two piece does give us that 10% weapon handling, which is really nice on this build. But most importantly, we do have the 8% multiplicative damage to armor. As our weapon doesn't have damage to health or damage to armor, we've now covered the damage to health with the Hollow Man, the damage to armor with the Contractors, and finally some additional damage to targets out of cover with the Fox's Prayer. This is a double win, as it is Overlord, which gives us a 10% rifle damage. And again, that's the reason we had this free chest slot here, because normally you would go with your Contractors, your Foxes, your Seska, your Grupo, probably the Coyote, and then usually whatever your weapon is, you would go for the brand. So, for example, Fenris or Sokolov. But because that's already included, that's why I've been able to squeeze this in without any real DPS loss. So 8% damage to targets out of cover, once again rolled in the same way with crit dam and weapon damage on there. Coming down to the skills, I definitely think the Reviver Hive is best in slot, as you will pull aggro with this build. Booster Hive is very good for increasing their handling if you're not a fan of Braced, but it just was nowhere near as good as the double Petrov with Braced. And you know, a Booster Hive means we can't have a Res Hive. On a 6-red build, you're going to go down. You know, no matter how good you are, you'll get rushed, you'll get a dodgy grenade hit you, something will go wrong, and this just basically removes that risk. We also have the Fixer Drone here, which is nice because, as you can see on the right side there, we've been able to use the 15% duration, the graphene battery from the Sharpshooter specialization. Not a necessity, you can still hit 10% max I think it's 10% or possibly 7.5. But it's just nice, you know, making this last longer is only ever going to result in more healing. But a great alternative here would be the decoy. I really like the decoy on 6 red builds. I think it's fantastic. But with no skill tier on this build, it doesn't last very long and it doesn't pull aggro for very long either. So I just felt that the overall healing, so I could melt everything safely, was a better choice. So that's the build just there. What we'll now do is have a quick look at the stats. We'll then quickly demonstrate how it works and then we'll load into that heroic content. So looking at my weapon stats, you can see that I'm at 369k, we'll say, which of course isn't being buffed by any of our multiplicative bonuses and talents just yet, and we will come to that shortly. Our crit chance is not quite 60% because just because I need to optimize some pieces on the build, but we do have very high crit damage, which I'm really happy about. With the inclusion of the additional headshot damage from Sharpshooter, we do have 95% headshot damage. If you can hit your heads, do so. It's very easy to do with this build, as I'm about to demonstrate, and it absolutely melts when you go for those heads. And then these are just based on the additional handling that I've got in the build without brace being equipped. Armor stats, nothing to see here. It's just a 6 red build. The only difference is that we have the 20% Hasbro instead of the 10% because the Hollow Man is a Courtier, which gives us 10%. But yeah, nothing too exciting on the armor page there. So what we'll now do is go into the firing range so that I can quickly demonstrate exactly how this all works. So what I'm quickly going to do here is just show off how fast we can melt a named boss on a heroic target in the firing range, and I'm also going to demonstrate that with and without orbits as well. I have gone for, I did actually forget to mention this, but I have gone for Boomerang on the weapon just because it is the best talent to run on rifles, as it gives you about the same ammo as Lucky Shot. Is it called Lucky Shot? Essentially the perfect version that the Baker's Dozen M1A has. That gives you a 20% mag increase for the standard version, but Boomerang, critical hits have a 50% chance to return the bullet to the magazine, which actually equates to more ammo anyway. And this is, in my opinion, along with Lucky Shot, if that's actually what it's called, the best talent, the only 2 talents you would ever run with this particular build. But Boomerang is better because it gives you about the same sort of ammo back as Lucky Shot does. But what it also does is give you the 40% increased damage on the next shot if you do indeed get that Boomerang to proc. So not only is it more ammo, but it is more damage. So for me, and especially with the handling on this build, I think Boomerang is, I don't want to say a must, but it kind of is a must. If you're a bad aim, go for Lucky Shot. If you can hit your shots, which this build you should be able to, as you don't need to go for headshots, just go for Boomerang. It just equates to more damage. So let's have a look. Let's get into cover. We've got a target just here. I'm just going to simply go for body shots. So as you can see, it does not last long at all. I mean, I was able to one clip that. Now, yes, I know you can get like 10 million if you go for a fast hands MG5 or a glass cannon build, but we're not looking at that today. And in my opinion, that is fast enough. What we can now do, well, that was a bit too quick, is switch to the pistol. And by the way, look at the swap speed. Instant. Look at that. It's crazy. So if you get the orbit perfect finisher to proc, what we'll now do is swap off of this. Even more DPS. So you know, this thing melts, and I wasn't even going for headshots there. If I decided to, it would just be ridiculous. Oh, I've actually landed my shots there. So you can see that there isn't really that much bloom at all. If you watch that white dot in the center there, yeah, this build absolutely wrecks, and all you've got to do is just sit at the back of the map, chill out, swap your weapons when you need to, use your orbit when you want to get the you know, the additional damage, which if you see a low enemy is always worth doing as frequently as possible with that really good swap speed, and you'll have a fantastic time. What I'll now do is load into a heroic mission so I can demonstrate this with some real world gameplay. So what we've done here is loaded into an invaded mission, just because these are usually a bit harder. If you do want to go straight to the boss fight, I will timestamp that separately as well, so just go straight into the description below if you want to cut straight to that. I will obviously just cut out all the in-between bits as well, so you don't have to watch me just running around, but this is essentially set to heroic. Looks like we've got Providence as target, looks like we may even get a good drop, and of course I am solo. Let's see how we do.
We think Black Tusk may be after the DCD's databases as a means to exploit the broad-spectrum antivirals they captured. We need to stop them.
Push ahead. Deploying UAV.
Yeah, probably shouldn't have gone for the pistol quite so early there. The pistols do have quite a bad range drop-off. So that wasn't really a good shout. See you later, tank. Where did that drone just go? Did that just fall into the floor there? Right, there's the buff active. I see a sniper up there. I can actually see anything with all this fog. That'll be helpful. Oh wow, that gunner is awful when you're in a 6 red build. No, don't lock onto that. The problem is as well that the hitbox is really messed up here. When they're on a turret, it's really hard to hit their head, or any part of them for that matter. I just can't say passive. Okay, and the other good thing as well is because we're not running Sawyers, which is usually very good. You're right there, mate. Is usually very good for in cover builds, as it does equate to more damage. We can just run around as much as we want. I did test it with Sawyers and it was more damage, but it just seemed a bit rude not to use Overlord. And what I could have done is just use an Overlord chest there with the Sawyers instead of the Petrov chest. You know, that could have worked really well as well. But yeah, I just wanted to go for Foxes in the end so I could have a bit more flexibility to move around. I hear a Warhound somewhere, so let's try and focus him if you can. Oh, why is Max so bad today? There he is. See you later, buddy. Thanks for showing up. Where is this guy? Oh, I thought I'd already killed him. See you later.
The division is tougher than they look. Concentrate.
Some pretty hefty shots there. Oh, it just decimates everything. It's definitely taken me a bit of getting used to with the increased rate of fire. I mean, the stability and accuracy are very good with Brace, but it does take a bit of getting used to. So just bear that in mind. You know, with the sort of the more traditional M1A build, you do take your time, you go for your headshots, and that's kind of where all your damage comes from. With this, you don't. You just go a bit crazy and spam, and that's why Lucky Shot is actually still a really good option. I still think that you know, Boomerang is better, but you're not even restricted to using the CQB on this build. You know, you could always just use something like the Ravenous or Merciless, the 2 exotic rifles, as they do tremendous damage as well with a Brace build. Woohoo! Not quite as much as this maybe, but
The damn mini tank is out of action.
stick your head up. Not today, buddy.
Watch your lines of fire. Take out those. They took him out. Targets in your hit.
Oh, it's disgusting how fast it melts. Like, you don't need glass cannon, you really don't. Crazy fast. Right, let's get the old fixer drone out. This thing should last quite a while. Get that bleed barrel popped. See you later, mate. So this is when with sharpshooter, when they say increased or better reacquisition of targets, is when you sort of snapshot and it instantly locks onto them. It does it from a greater radius with that particular talent, so you can kind of abuse that a little bit. If I can actually see what I was shooting at, that would be helpful. Watch out for that sniper, because they do pretty much 2-shot on a 6 red build. Not to worry though, because dead already. There it is. So once again, position right at the back of the room. Just spam. Oh, it's a heavier. This would be a good test. See you later, guy. See you later.
System malfunctioning.
UAV is not up.
System reactivated.
He's done.
Now I have tried to, well, I have successfully avoided picking up any ammo crates so far, apart from, you know, just ammo that enemies have dropped. Just to, I know that's a bit of a concern of some people with this weapon, is the ammo consumption, and I do feel that it is okay with sharpshooter. But you know, I appreciate that is a valid concern. This thing does spam bullets like you've never seen. Ooh, big boy spam. Perfect. Right, so now coming up to the boss fight. Let's get these popped real quick. Ah, oh, like that there, you would never be able to do that on a CQB. Fire that fast with that kind of range. Let's see how quickly we can get this boss down. Now don't get me wrong, it does still have a bit of kick at range even on this build, but it's nowhere near as bad as, you know, without braced and with all the extra weapon handling that I've gone for. See a sniper. Oh, this boss is a sniper, isn't it? I'll try and get my orbit procs really if I can. Never mind, I guess I'll just kill the boss. Oh, not the boss, the NPC. Ow! I'm pretty sure she fired before she even sat up right there. Let's try and get a big blind grenade off.
Immediate medical assistance needed.
I'm gonna go for it anyway. Ah! Yes. I see you over there.
Serious trauma detected.
Oh, there's another sniper. Wow. 6 red builds are hairy. They're dangerous.
Agent out of function.
Where is that sniper? Is that this guy on the right? That's a grenadier. And there you go, that perfectly proves my point. Look how pinpoint accurate that grenade was. A lot more pinpoint accurate than I was, let's put it that way. Today, buddy. Still no clue where the sniper is, but... Oh, there! I see you. How is he shooting me like through this pillar? The grenade, I guess. Yeah, this guy's just straight up wall hacking right now. Oh, the accuracy is insane. Where is this last guy? I can't see. Oh, gone. Is that the end of the mission? It is indeed. Right, there it is. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I know this is a bit off-meta. It's definitely an off-meta rifle build, but honestly, I've said this several times throughout the gameplay, but I thoroughly enjoy how this plays. It's quite a relaxing playstyle compared to a Glass Cannon M1A build, and I don't need to worry about my accuracy, because I know for a fact that it wasn't great in that mission, but that's not the point. Because we have braced, we can just reload as often as we need to, as fast as we want. You know, most of our shots, if we're on their centre of mass, will land because of the ridiculous handling we've got on this build, and ever since they buffed it, it's just, in my opinion, the perfect pairing. Try it out with this exact combo. I always ask the same thing in every build that I put out. If it looks a bit weird to you and you're thinking, why have you gone for that? Don't judge it until you've tried it. I put a lot of time into testing these builds out, and sometimes the benefits aren't obviously clear. Even to myself, I'll just swap some stuff out and think, oh, actually, that feels way better. I never would have considered this. And if I might have looked at somebody else running that, I would have been like, well, what's the thinking there? So try it out for yourself first. Try out these pieces if you've got them. Stick them on. Get your CQB on. Get Boomerang rolled onto it. And let me know what you think once you've tested it. And you might be surprised at just how powerful this is, particularly if you are a good aim. I'm a terrible aim, and I can still just walk through content with it. So I can't wait to see what some of you out there will do with this build, you know, on PC or just with a better aim than mine. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.